Hey guys. In this video, I am going to tell which is the best distribution for users who are just starting out with Linux. Beginners will be easily confused as to which Linux distro they have to use as a beginner to Linux, because there are tons of Linux distros. If you see on Distro Watch, you can see that there are more than 100 of them. So I decided to make this video as an answer to all those Linux beginners who are in a confusion to choose which Linux distro they have to use. Everyone has a different taste. So which Linux distro should you choose as a beginner? Arch Linux and Gentoo are definitely not suitable for beginners because the installation itself requires a lot of time and effort. You are supposed to install the system by yourself and configure it all by yourself. This includes a lot of commands. Novice users will not have that much knowledge about Linux to install everything by themselves. But once you are quite familiar with Linux and its commands, then you will easily be able to install Arch and Gentoo. All it takes is a matter of minutes to install. For the installation tutorial, you can look up various tutorials on YouTube, or you could read the up-to-date wiki of the respective distros to install it. It hardly takes 15 minutes to install Arch. But I don't know how much time it takes to install Gentoo, since I've never tried it. But I think that I will be giving Gentoo a try in the near future. If you are curious about Linux and want to learn some simple commands first, then you might want to consider going with Fedora or OpenSUSE. These two distributions do not have a large collection of software packages, but they do have a decent amount of them. In case you don't find the program in the software center, then you can build the program from source. You can read the official wiki of that program, and I am quite sure that you will find how to build it from source. That's why I think that Fedora and OpenSUSE need a bit of learning curve. So here comes the best distributions for beginners who are just starting out with Linux. Linux Mint, Linux Lite and MX Linux. These three distros, according to me, are the best beginner-friendly distros. Why? Because they have a similar user interface as Windows does and they work out of the box. I will be discussing about Linux Mint after a few seconds after I talk about Linux Lite and MX Linux. So, I feel that Linux Lite has the most Windows 7 style interface in this whole list. It has a beautiful welcome screen where you can find one-click options to update your system, install some proprietary drivers, get some help etc. Linux Lite is based on Ubuntu, so you will have heavily tested packages that may not do any harm to your system. MX Linux is also quite similar to Linux Lite, but it is based on Debian. Debian also has a huge software repository and packages are heavily tested. Now if you want an Arch-based distribution which has bleeding-edge software and up-to-date packages while being easy to install then you can consider installing Manjaro, Arco Linux or Antergos. Manjaro currently takes the #1 spot on Distro Watch. Some worthy mentions are Solus and Elementary OS. Solus comes in two desktops, Mighty and Budgie. Budgie is Solus' own desktop environment built from scratch. Solus is itself an independent distribution, and I personally feel that the Budgie desktop is great for beginners. Elementary OS, on the other hand, is based on Ubuntu. It also comes with its own Pantheon desktop environment which resembles Mac OS interface. I feel that both these distributions are great for beginners. On the right, you can see a screenshot of Distro Watch's page hit rankings. Manjaro occupies the first spot followed by MX Linux and Linux Mint. Elementary on the 4th position and Solus on the 8th position. The distro that I think is probably the best for Linux beginners is Linux Mint. I have some solid reasons for this choice. I'll be discussing about them in this video. So here are the reasons why I think Linux Mint is the best for beginners. Its own Cinnamon desktop environment. Linux Mint comes with its own Cinnamon desktop which is very beginner friendly. It derives from GNOME 3 but follows the traditional desktop workflow. If you like Windows 7 interface, then you will definitely love the Cinnamon desktop and Linux Mint. It is designed for people who are switching from Windows to Linux. Linux Mint works out of the box. There is no need to configure Linux Mint. Everything works out of the box, and I think this is very important aspect for beginners who are just starting out with Linux. You get all the necessary everyday apps pre-installed, which I think is what makes beginners happy. Linux Mint is based on Ubuntu. Ubuntu has a very huge beginner-friendly community where there are a lot of active forums where people actively participate in all the queries. I personally had some trouble setting up Ubuntu when I first started out with Linux, which was about 5 months ago. So I went to the forums and presented my query, and believe it or not, I got an instant answer. The Ubuntu forum welcomes noobs and you don't get humiliated or criticized for asking noob questions. Since Linux Mint is based on Ubuntu, it uses all official Ubuntu repositories. So you will be able to get all programs and software that are available on Ubuntu, on Linux Mint. Ubuntu pushes software for general use after extensive testing. This means users will not have to deal with unexpected crashes and glitches that some new software are prone to. So here is a screenshot of Linux Mint with the Cinnamon desktop. It looks pretty much like Windows 7 with the taskbar or panel at the bottom and menu button on the bottom left corner, and the apps are neatly categorized in the menu, which will make it easy to locate apps. The last reason why I think Linux Mint is best for beginners is that it provides a choice to choose the desktop environment of our preference. There are 3 variants of Linux Mint. One is Cinnamon, the other is Mate, and the third is XFCE. Cinnamon has the best out-of-the-box experience with Windows 7-like interface, which is ideal for users who are switching from Windows to Linux. Mate, on the other hand, is for people who want a traditional workflow while implementing the latest technologies, which is based on GNOME 2. XFCE is a very lightweight desktop and runs blazingly fast while fulfilling the needs for people who want the traditional desktop environment. So guys, thanks for watching this video. Please do subscribe to my channel and like this video for more Linux videos.